just so that you begin to get a little feel of the magnitude of the problem. So, an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper is, let's estimate, and let's agree on the estimate. Let's say, would you say that there's 100 lines? Roughly 100 lines? Okay. So, Microsoft Windows and Linux are 40 million lines of code. 40 million. How many sheets of paper at 100 lines per sheet is that? And code is not prose. Just to give you a feel for the type of problem, work for the Trident submarine. Each 10 pieces of paper, each 1,000 lines of code, takes about 2 years to produce. Just 10 pieces of paper. And by produce, I mean write it, test it, go over it, make sure it's correct. And there's still bugs in it. It's a huge problem. And that's why for the longest time, the adversary was perceived had the advantage. Because he just needs to find one hole in this huge thing. But by using automated methods to monitor the execution of this code and detect when the execution has gone astray, and then bring it back in line, you stand a chance.
Who came up with the idea of applying ODA, O-O-D-A?
Me.
Really? That's quite a leap.
Excellent.
Fortunately, the government thought it was good. It gave me a job. If you're a dignitary and are targeted by another country, they'll do research upon you and your friends and what your habits are, and then send you an email as though it comes from one of your friends. And if you're caught in a weak moment, so I'll answer that. So you need.
A question. Is the power grid susceptible to hacking? You know, could somebody make it go down, and are they trying to protect it?
Yes. Yes to both that. It is susceptible, and there's a big effort to protect it. In fact, if you go on the web, there was I think a lot of work is being done at the University of Illinois in Urbana. There was a test run by DHS where there was a turbine put online, and it was controlled in the way most turbines are controlled, except that it was put in a test environment and put on the network like most turbines, and there was a red team and a blue team. And the blue team was assigned to protect the turbine and its network, and the red team was assigned to attack it. Look on the video of YouTube. You can see the turbine shaking out of control till the bearings just give way and it catches fire.
Is that because both forces are fighting against each other?
Well, that's where the blue and red comes from. But in this case, the blue team is protecting the network, and the red team is trying to get into the network and break and cause physical damage to the turbine. And it shows, it's on YouTube, you can find it. It shows the turbine shaking until it catches fire. So the answer is definitely yes. In fact, it's believed that there was a test run made by, it looked like it came out of China, at a small Brazilian city that took down the power grid of a small Brazilian city. And they just run a test. Can we take down this city's power? And the answer was yes.
You know, I heard that when we started bombing Iraq, that almost instantaneously we shut down their defense systems. Is that true?
Well, yeah, and that's a lot of that is right. You can read it in the open source literature, but that was done much simpler than it didn't. Very often you think of sophisticated ways to do things, and then there's very easy ways to do things. You essentially flew over power lines and dropped like Christmas, what's that
Chaff.
called? Chaff, but it's tinsel. It looks like crisp, but it's, you know, a little bit raw. And he just flew over and dumped this stuff on the power lines and shorted out the power lines. So yeah, they took down the grid, but they didn't, you know, it was very simple. Just threw a bunch of metal all over the place. Yeah.
Are there any things other than what we currently have on our home computers that could improve without going through this whole sophisticated, because we're not going to be really subject, in most cases, to a sophisticated attack? Do you have any suggestions? Should we try to use some sort of hardware, like
Well,
a router, encrypted router without wires?
Well, there's some very simple things you can do.
Right.
When you, on Windows and Macs, all have administrative accounts and user accounts.
Right.
You should only use user accounts and do not keep administrative accounts open. When you log on to a user account. Because a lot of people just keep their machines powered on around the clock. So if you do that, keep it on the user account. This way, if your machine is corrupted in some way, the adversary is constrained to what they can do. If you get compromised within an administrative account, then you're going to lose your machine.
I don't understand the difference. What do you mean? What is an administrative?
So an administrative account on Windows, you can log in as an administrator or some other user. You create them. An administrator has privileges granted by the operating system that allows them to install new software and to install, in particular, these things that are called device drivers. Sometimes your machine updates device. Device drivers run in that master mode. So the adversary will, if he can get access to your machine, as an administrator, will install a bogus device driver that will run in master mode and take over your machine. So you want to keep your machine out of administrative mode. You want to keep it in user mode.
How do you do that?
Well, let me see.
Set up in a user account.
Set up a user account and log into that. But don't, you know, don't feel bad if you don't know what, most people don't know, because the computer industry has done a horrible job in educating people about the machines they buy. They've done a horrible job. And a lot of, there are a number of problems. First of all, the so-called geeks can't be bothered in talking to civilians, number one. Number two,
Right.
when it's done overseas, and this is a pet peeve, engineers are horrible at communicating, myself included. Now, combine that with a Japanese or Chinese engineer who has to think in Chinese, write in Chinese, and then convert the instructions to English. It's hopeless. I look at the manuals sometimes, I just want to throw them away. They're just almost useless.
Just a simple tool, not even a computer, just a,
Oh, yeah, it's all over the place.
Putting together something made in China, you know, it's assembling it.
Yeah, and I particularly get cranky when, I buy a mobile phone, and I'm given a book about that thick, so I just want to make a phone call with it.
There's no information in the book, that's what annoys me. Nothing to use the phone, everything about licensing and,
Yeah, there's a lot of that too.
and how to buy time and so on. No user information.